This week's North East True Crime video is about the chilling child murders of Newcastle's 11-year-old Mary Bell. Don't forget to ring that notification bell and subscribe. Mary Flora Bell was born on the 26th of May 1957 in a run-down and poverty-stricken area of Newcastle called Scotswood. Her mother Betty was only 17 when she gave birth to Mary and worked as a prostitute. Betty resented Mary from very early on and would often force her into helping to entertain her clients and would subject her to awful abuse. It was also accounted by various family members that when Mary was a baby, Betty had made a few attempts at killing Mary. She would always pass these incidents off as accidents and near misses, but the extended family members had their suspicions. It comes as very little surprise that due to her upbringing, Mary was often in trouble and would frequently upset and hurt the children who she went to Delaval Road Junior School with. She would burn children with cigarettes and strangle them until they were unable to catch their breath. Teachers at the school recall Mary as being extremely bright and independent, yet lacking in any sympathy or feelings for others. During her schooling, Mary met Norma Bell, no relation, who was a couple of years her senior. Despite being older than Mary, Norma was the less mature of the two and had learning difficulties. These traits made Norma extremely easily manipulated by Mary, who always had the upper hand in the relationship. The first documented sign of trouble the pair found themselves in was when Mary strangled a young girl whilst filling her mouth with sand. Norma helped by holding the girl down until she managed to wriggle free. The girl's parents reported this incident to the police, but it went uninvestigated. For weeks before her first murder, Mary Bell had been acting strangely. On May the 11th, 1968, Mary had been playing with a 3-year-old boy when he was badly injured in a fall from the top of an air raid shelter. His parents thought it was an accident. On May the 25th, 1968, Mary, who was just a day shy of her 11th birthday, was out playing alone amongst the derelict houses and wasteland of Scotswood. Here she met 4-year-old Martin Brown, who, like her, was out playing unsupervised. Mary befriended the young boy, and during that morning took him to play in an abandoned house on the estate. Martin Brown never left the ruined house alive. Mary had taken hold of Martin and subsequently subdued and strangled him to death, leaving his body alone in the old abandoned house. The same afternoon, 2 young boys playing in the house discovered Martin's body and alerted the police, who upon investigating the scene discovered a half-empty bottle of tablets. Martin's body bore no signs of strangulation due to the fact that Mary herself was the child and didn't have the force or strength to leave any marks on his neck. In light of Martin's death was considered that of a somewhat misadventure due to consuming the tablets found not far from his body. 2 days after Martin's death, Mary and Norma broke into the suburbs' abandoned nursery. Whilst in there, they left hand-scribbled notes confessing to the murder of Martin. When the police were called to investigate the break-in and seal and secure the building, the notes were subsequently discovered. Due to the nature of the notes and the childlike way in which they were presented, the police assumed them to be a sick prank and did nothing to follow them up. It was around this time that Mary and Norma paid a visit to Martin Brown's mother. They asked the grieving parent if they could see Martin, and when Mrs. Brown told them sadly no, Martin had passed away, Mary declared, "Oh yes, we know that. We want to see him in his coffin." Mrs. Brown was understandably disturbed by this revelation and promptly closed the door on the girls in disbelief. A couple of months passed by without event, and Martin's family were left to grieve, assuming that his death had been from an accident. This was until July 1968, when Mary, now 11, and Norma, 13, were out playing on some waste ground in Scotswood. It was here that they met 3-year-old Brian Howe. Brian, who had striking blue eyes and blonde hair, had been playing with the girls before he was also attacked. Brian was strangled and had incisions and marks made in his torso, a letter N and a letter M. Police were quick to establish the possibility that children may have been responsible for the murder due to the crassness of the carvings and how Brian had been left. Interviews with almost 1,200 local children were conducted in order to try and establish what and who was responsible for this heartless murder, something that locals could not fathom from a child being behind. During these interviews, police found Mary and Norma to be evasive and contradictory. Their stories didn't add up, and suspicion began to grow towards the girls. Mary had also been shown a rather unhealthy interest in the case, often pestering visiting journalists and police during their interviews and explorations of Scotswood. Police continued to press the girls for answers, and it wasn't long before they were talking. The girls blamed one another for the death. Mary accused Norma of making the cuts and marks in Brian's torso. Both girls were arrested on the 5th of August 1968. When police informed Mary that she was to be charged with the murder, she simply stated, "That's all right by me." When investigations got further underway, the case of Martin Brown's death was once again looked at. It became clear to police that even though there were no physical marks on Brian's body to confirm murder, that the girls were more than likely also linked to this crime. Due to this, the girls were subsequently charged with both murders. In December 1968, both girls appeared in court at Moot Hall and charged with the murders. Mary appeared self-assured and confident during the trial and admitted to breaking into the nursery and leaving the above-mentioned notes. Norma, on the other hand, had struggled with being on trial. She became confused, contradicted her stories, and was generally overwhelmed to the point of being unable to provide her side of events. It was clear that Mary was the ringleader of the pair and heavily manipulated Norma. After weeks of deliberation and court appearances, the jury found Mary Bell guilty of 2 counts of manslaughter due to diminished responsibility. She was 11 years old and handed a life sentence. Norma Bell was found not guilty due to her inability to give evidence and her behaviour in court. It is of general opinion that Norma was heavily coerced in her behaviour by the heavily disturbed and manipulative actions of Mary Bell. To this day, Mary Bell is very much still alive, aged 65. She was released from jail and young offenders in 1980 with a new identity. She was 23 years old. She went on to live a relatively normal life. She had a daughter in 1984 who also shares her anonymity for life. The right to anonymity granted to Bell's daughter following her birth was originally only extended until she had reached the age of 18. However, on the 21st of May 2003, Bell won a High Court battle to have her own anonymity and that of her daughter extended for life. This order was approved by Dame Elizabeth Butler Sloss and was later updated to include Bell's granddaughter, who was born in January 2009, who was referred to simply as Z. Do you think they should have both been found guilty, or was Norma just coerced? Let us know in the comments below alongside what Northeast true crime story you'd like to hear next, and don't forget to subscribe.